So let's begin with the pledge of allegiance. The pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So. Are there any changes to the agenda that anyone wants to
Yes,
offer? Yes,
I have two requests. I would like to add a nomination to the consent agenda. Should I name that now, or do we wait until the consent agenda?
go ahead.
Okay, I would like to add a nomination of Ashley Benz to the position of school counselor. Effective date August 1st, 2023.
Thank you.
And I would also like to request a change to move agenda item 7, discussion of policy KFR, to replace number 4, our student representative report, as our student representative isn't here right now, unless she's online. I doubt, but I'd like to move up. Okay, so I'd like to move KFR up since we have guests.
Okay, so that sounds good. Let's consider that done. Okay. And then let's move on to public comments.
So I'm going to put the public comment policy up on the screen. So just make sure that you're familiar with that process before making a public comment. If you are in-house and would like to make a public comment, you can do so by raising your hand. I'll bring a microphone over to you. First name, last name, town of residence before making a public comment. If you are remote and wish to make a public comment, you can raise your hand by pushing, there should be a raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Push that, I'll see a little hand. I can acknowledge you there. So in either case, it's raise your hand, whether you're in person or remote, and then first name, last name, town of residence. Usually we start with in-house just because you guys are right here and I can see it. It gives the online audience a chance to potentially build up. Anybody in-house?
Okay, so you guys will be up the next very next item. Have a chance. What about online?
I am not seeing anything online at this time.
Okay. Well, there'll be another chance for public comment at the end of the meeting. So let's move on then to our item 4, which is the policy discussion.
Right. So policy KFR, R means it's in the procedures. The KF policy is regarding outside use of our facilities. And that is a great general policy, but we need to have very specific procedures on both priority levels of groups using it, as well as making sure that our facilities are being treated respectfully and are covered by staff. And so there's a cost to that. So last summer, facilities came to us, as you know, and said, you know, these are the expenses of just the use on our properties. And we really ought to take a better look at this. So in August, we had edited it. And then in November, we edited it. And January, we're coming back to it. And now we're coming back again. It is worth taking the time to get this one right. There's so many people involved, and I'm very pleased that we have community members who use it frequently coming to talk with us about concerns. Charlie and I went to the school board meeting in Ringe the other night, and Dan Bemis shared a bunch of concerns there. And I don't know if Dan is on the Zoom and wants to talk. Okay, so he's invited here. So we just wanted to have another chance now that we're moving through this policy and about to start the payments, which we had grandfathered to July 1st. Now that we're starting to put everything in place, we just want to make sure we are still getting it right. And so we want to hear concerns and things that need to change. We do have a policy meeting coming up this Thursday. Anybody is welcome to join us. I'm saying this publicly. Please come to that meeting, 4:30, in the superintendent's conference room. If you still have concerns and if you want to be a part of, revamping. So what I'd love to do is invite first, any of our guests to come and speak to concerns that they have seen with the current policy and what's coming.
You can set where you are. We don't have to say anything.
Thank you. John Frederick, Town Manager for Jaffrey. We've had a longstanding agreement between the school and the town regarding Humiston Field. And we put a lot of energy into maintaining Humiston for both baseball and soccer. And I know you can't develop a policy that addresses all issues. You've got two different towns here with different considerations that you have to take when you're making this, but we are curious to know where that agreement stands regarding Humiston Field.
And the agreement is relative to basically an exchange of usage of spaces. So we utilize the town fields in the springtime for the most part, but also, as you stated, for soccer in the fall.
Correct.
And-
And community field as well for softball.
Yep, and for softball at the other field, right? And then the Pratt is used, other areas, but Pratt's the one that's widely used. And
Correct.
so we've had an equal exchange.
Do you schedule Humiston Field through Master Library? You schedule use for that?
John Cole Morgan, Recreation Director. I schedule the fields using RecDesk, our software. So the fields are under the recreation in the town, reserving fields. So I go through the school for Pratt, JGS, RMS, but Humiston and Community Field is under the town.
Let me ask Trey, since you're here, Trey Horn, who is our facilities guru. Do we schedule Humiston through Master Library?
No, we do not. Humiston is owned and operated by the town of Jaffrey. That's just a site that we have used historically for the school district.
So where would that be? It sounds like it's not a school. Okay. I don't know where that, yeah.
Activities Director Heather Lindstedt. We do what John does. We fill out the forms to use their space. So he provides me the paperwork. We fill out what we need as far as the fall for soccer, what we use it for baseball, and when we use community for softball. So I'm filling out the paperwork. We're doing the same things that they do as far as what they're doing for Master Library. The one thing about Humiston, though, as we've expanded and put in a batting cage and those kind of things, even though it's on their property, we are maintaining all of that. So there are certain parts of Humiston and Community Field, we do the lines and stuff like that. So that's our facilities people, maintenance, doing those kind of things. So that's kind of the way that works. Does that answer the question?
It actually begs like a million more questions.
That's
So-
great. Good thing I'm here.
Yeah, it's because, I mean, as we're putting together the policy, right? So we're dealing with the physical properties that the school owns. But if we are providing labor and care for other facilities, and that's not through Master Library, have there ever been conflicts of usage?
So the way that we use Master Library for the rec department to come in and sign up for what they're trying to use ours, I do the same thing back to him. So their Master Library is called RecDesk. So
Okay.
I'm putting that in, but knowing that we've had this agreement that we do the lines though for the baseball, softball. We put up our nets at Humiston for soccer. We do the lines for soccer as well. You do the line, yeah. We provide our benches, the nets, the goals. So we provide some of the stuff, we just use their field. But we provide the nets that people are using all the time. The benches, those are all property of the school district.
Okay, if that system's working, I don't see how that would fall under KFR.
So can I make a suggestion? I believe the policy committee is gonna review a new policy submission that we found from the facilities committee. And I think that one of the things that we do need to do, because of the differences between the towns and the relationship between the school and the different towns, is to work on an MOU with each town, because we have different issues to work with each town, and we have different facilities uses from each town, because if you go to Ringe, we're predominantly using RMS for things. If you come up to Jaffrey, they're using Pratt for a lot of things, and then when you look at the usage of the school, it's expanding because we're having more athletic participation. There are some things that we do need to do, and that is ensure the safety and security of the buildings and the safety of the children in those buildings. So we need to be concerned about whoever's there facilitating whatever's going on, all right, has the proper background checks, fingerprints, all that kind of stuff. But there are also some issues that we need to work with the different rec departments, because the Ringe Rec Department can schedule things a year early, and they don't want to get bumped once they do a schedule. So we need to make some decisions with each town relative to what their unique needs are and how we can accommodate those needs and work together with the community. So I think that the first step is that Lisa's gonna try to get together something to address this policy. And then from there, we could go to the MOU. I believe that would be an outcome of the policy.
So we will bring that up, but Hubbardston Field is actually owned by the town, correct?
Yes.
Perfect, okay, I just wanted to get, okay, perfect. Yeah, all right, so please go back and I'm starting a document. I really want to hear what pieces are really not connecting and meshing.
One, John Cole Morgan, Recreation Director in Jaffrey. One hasn't been an issue yet, but seeing us go from priority, I think 4 to 6, it might not be an issue, but being bounced, it would be our reputation with our programming. We don't use the school a ton, but we do use it for youth basketball, which is a 6-week program. We reserve for 8 weeks because of Mother Nature. So we use that from 9:30 to 3:30. We have our annual craft fair, which I believe is on its 44th year, which takes a lot of preset setup on Friday, and then Saturday, a whole day event. And then our youth karate program at JGS that starts from September to April. Those are the 3 big programs that we have going on at the school. I would love to create more, but I understand space at the school is limited as well. And I'm not trying to overwhelm anyone here at the school as well. Hummiston is used from 2:30 to 7, almost 5 days a week for baseball and softball as well, a community. So using each other's facilities is crucial, and just want to make sure that I think sending bills back and forth, MOU of understanding what might be a better route to go.
So you're seeking our input.
Yep.
On this particular conflict, and I take that will go towards hashing out an MOU. With some meetings to follow.
I mean, there are some issues that we're facing too. What we thought were simple processes. Okay, we're finding out that the software doesn't accommodate that and so forth. So we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board as well.
Can I ask, have you had any situations where your programming was bumped in the last year, like since we started doing master library, like let's say the last year? Have you had any situations where you thought you had a program scheduled?
Only
something else
once.
was-
So me and Heather, I think, have a great understanding of reserving each other's space and keeping the schedules honest. I really appreciate working with Heather and Trey. There hasn't been many issues at all on either side. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Just wanna make sure. But yeah, I think we've worked. Yeah, we're on the same team. I think we've worked really well as creating schedules and understanding each other's space and utilizing each other's facilities best we can.
Can I ask, is that because you two communicate directly with each other? Or is that because the system worked in a way that made that? I'm about the system right now. So is that because you guys call each other and say, hey, Heather, I need this? Yeah, or is the system working?
On the baseball and softball side, I think it's the communication. I think we sit down, Heather writes the forms up together. We talk back and forth if there is a change. April vacation, sometimes one of them coaches want to have practice early. We adjust the schedule that week. So communication, how many sets of keys? I think communication is what works for us. Rec desk is pretty easy. So once I have the reservation, I put it in and I can make changes as communication comes in pretty easily.
Okay. All right. Before you go, I'm losing it. Do you have any concerns on the waiver side, the waiver information that's in there, or do you have any?
The fees or the waiver?
The waiver portion of it. So right now, as the policy stands, rec programs would apply for a waiver to have the fees removed. Do you have any input on that?
I guess how long would the waiver process take? I think timeline is huge. Marketing for us, we like to market 3 to 5 months in advance. Sometimes that's not always possible. But we like to market ahead of time, especially if youth basketball, craft fair, things like that. It doesn't just happen. We need approval and marketing, and I don't market unless I have approval, out of respect and things like that. So I think timeline would be my concern with a waiver.
Is there anything else that you would really like us to address with, in terms of the facilities, both guys, Heather?
I think so far with Heather and Trey and everyone, it's been working well. I would like to continue the positive relationship that we have, and just move forward.
Right, before we end though, as I know we'll be talking about this as a policy committee, but Trey shared with me some things that I would like you to speak to the board about, so that we can have a bigger conversation on this piece. This isn't something the policy committee can decide, and I would like their input on it. Could you speak to any concerns you have with the waiver portion of the policy, of the procedures?
Absolutely. So the waiver idea, I think in concept, it is a good idea. However, as soon as the rubber starts to hit the road, it creates a ton of issues. Building off of John's perspective, that what kind of timeline are we looking at? That is something that I've seen become a bottleneck quite a bit. For our approval process, we have it go through based on the space. If it's an athletic space, it goes to Heather as the athletic director, building principal, and then the facilities director. If there is any kind of ambiguity in that approval process, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of back and forth of Heather reaching out to me saying, hey, do I approve this? Is there a waiver? How do I see if there's a waiver? Of the building principals reaching out, asking the same questions. And then when it gets to, you haven't had a chance to approve one yet, but when it gets to John Leclerc, it's like, well, what am I looking at? Like, are they submitting a waiver? Are we charging a fee? Has this been vetted? It creates a lot of opportunities for miscommunication and human error. I know that I'm not perfect. I can't stay on top of all the pieces wherever they are in their process. I think that's unreasonable. And I think that the reason that we have an automated system for this is so that it can be really, really clear what the expectations are and where we want to go. Personally, I feel that the waiver process is not worth the effort. I truly believe that the board should decide, do we charge fees or do we not charge fees? In trying to implement this waiver idea, the system automatically calculates the costs that we have assigned to that event and that time and that group. And when the waiver comes in, I have to go in and manually override it, which again is another layer of human error that I will own because I'm doing it, but I don't want the human error in there. I want to cut myself out of it. That's something that I want to be fair for the school district and for the community. That we do what we say what we're going to do, and it's really clear and easy to follow. I think the waiver muddies the water unnecessarily.
Thank you, Trey.
Is that what you're looking for?
That's, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. I wanted the board to be able to hear that and see what the board kind of felt direction wise. It's not something our policy committee can make that call. Well, when John McClure came to us last summer, there was real concern on two fronts, not just the money piece, but it's the accountability, knowing who's using it and for what. And that was really a big piece, just like we have no handle, and Master Library really makes that so much cleaner. And having you in a full-time position to really help that facilities really made that clearer too. But I'm wondering personally if it's too soon to start the fees, if we need, now that we have Master Library, to have a year, maybe even two of data. Say, these are the nonprofits using it. These are the facilities that are the most used and the most damaged. Where are these directions? These are one piece that the facilities intrigues me with is these partnerships, because the Monadnock Baseball Group that does an incredible job in Ringe with supporting and doing physical work and volunteering and donations and the stuff in Jaffrey. I mean, it's just, I love these community partnerships. These symbiotic relationships are invaluable. And that's a third piece to this nonprofit. So I guess I wanted to kind of bring that back to the board. Is this something that we want to put a kibosh on, at least take a year or two and get all the data through Master Library to be able to come back and say, now we want to charge anybody using the Pratt. No, I'm just saying that out loud, but what needs to be charged, especially if what's happening is groups are being bumped, because Dan Bemis, I asked that question about the bumping because at the selectmen meeting, that was a major concern for the Ringe Rec department, because they were bumped and they felt that not everybody was using Master Library to get, and they weren't, the timing was just off and they had to be shifted, and it was really, really hard to do a scheduled program and then have it taken away. But now to have the waiver and understanding that the waiver means that scheduling doesn't happen when it needs to happen. So I guess I want the board to have that opportunity while you guys are here.
You got approval.
So just to make sure that I'm understanding where you're coming from, I'm hearing that we want to nail down the scheduling process, get it polished up and looking good, and be able to present a couple years worth of data for the school district, for the school board to make a data-driven decision. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm throwing to the board.
Okay.
Would it be helpful if Jaffrey and Ringe rec departments also collected data about the number of times the school district uses their facilities? I mean, can you collect that through?
I have that data.
You have that, okay. I'm sure, like, we know baseball, softball, soccer, right? But
That would be good.
Forgive me if this is in the policy, but the waiver approval process, is that what Trey was talking about, or is there a separate approval process for a waiver? So say, for instance, walking through the process, John was to apply for rec basketball, gets into the system, Trey is processing this waiver. Who approves the waiver and when?
I can speak to that. The process that I was referring to was for the event request.
That's
went
what I
through
thought.
Master
Yeah,
Library.
so who approves the waiver and when does that happen?
The waiver goes directly to the school board. It goes on the agenda in the consent agenda for the next regularly scheduled meeting. And then it can be
So you're
voted on.
looking at
and
up to
deliberative.
2 weeks
Exactly.
for an approval.
And it's excessive, to put it bluntly. It takes a very long time.
Okay.
I understand that maybe people think they're being bumped. We can't make those decisions. And there's certain things that, you know, as John is standing here, that I can make decisions, but it's very hard to make our decisions 4 months in advance. I don't know how many people are signing up for soccer. I don't know how many people are signing up for softball and what the field usage is going to be. So when somebody says they're being bumped, like at RMS, if we have, how many did we have? 75 middle schoolers participating in basketball? I don't know that until they sign up. So I understand what people are saying, but if all of a sudden we nail something down and it's not in the policy that they might be bumped and they go to master library in July 1, you're then probably going to have to tell your activities director to schedule now. And then they're not going to, because I'm just going to have to schedule extra. We have to talk about that those are legit things. Today, I just came back from talking to a group that's down on Lower Field right now. I have a track program down there. They have a meet tomorrow, and there's a random group, which is fine, but they're not in master library, and my javelin throwers can't throw where they're supposed to be practicing right now. So I get this and these waivers, but then who continues to get waivers? We need to make sure that that's not a problem. I don't want to fight over the school usage, but again, Charlie just said it. Right now, it's kind of odd, and hopefully, and nothing happened because I was able to walk over there. But my athletes walked over there with javelins, and those are those pointy things, you know, and people are looking at them like, oh, we're using it. Now, our athletes were fine. They went down to Stonefield, but we really need to make sure that this community knows that our athletes are out there and it's their facilities. And if they're all going to, and things are going to get waived, that's fine. But people have to start to understand what master library is about.
Yeah. Well, wait, before you do that, Trey. So I think the waiver is just for those groups that would have a fee. So it's not for timing of groups. It's scheduling. It's really just for a fee. But when you, and I haven't seen master library. I haven't looked at it closely, but when you go like with your 75 middle schoolers, you can go in and see that it's already set up in there, right? Like that the rec department has this spot here. Is that right? Like you can see if somebody's using it?
What I'm saying is they're going to schedule now. They schedule in July 1. They're going to get bumped potentially if they schedule on July 1.
Because you don't know yet how many people.
Correct. Because we don't know until family ID. So but what I was bringing up about that group is what groups are going to use it, or are they not going to sign up because of waivers and those things? That's what I'm
Scott, yeah, that's.
All right, so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm on a policy committee. And there are too many details and nuances to try to put it in a single policy that includes both towns. So I'm of the opinion that the policy probably should be something like the school district will have an MOU annually with each town regarding the use of facilities. And then let each town negotiate. I mean, each rec center has their own issues. I mean, Ringe has got their own tennis courts, they've got their own ball field. And so they're not concerned about using anything that we have in that area. So I'm thinking that probably the communication issue that we're talking about would best be solved by an MOU between the school and the Jaffrey Rec Department, the school and the Ranger Rec Department. And they can address these nuances a lot better than I can.
I think that might make it super messy for Trey.
Well,
I think that would really be overwhelming to have some, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Trey.
So I appreciate that sentiment quite a bit, Lisa. Personally, I would be okay with a mess once a year rather than a mess every time a schedule comes in. And that's currently what we're looking at. Based on what Heather was saying, and I really want to highlight that there needs to be a high level of flexibility for the school district activities. And that's something that Heather and I are working on in Master Library, because ideally we'd have everything mapped out 365 days in advance, and just checking boxes. We're good. But that's not the world that we live in, unfortunately. I think that if we can come to terms with the towns to be equitable and fair and feeling that both sides, that it's symbiotic, I am willing to change how it runs in the background once a year. Because every time the policy changes, I have to do that anyway. And so if we change it every 3 months, that's more like work.
So one possibility is that when we do our annual budget, it will be based on the MOUs. And if the budget goes through, great, we've got this great agreement. And if the budget doesn't go through, then we need to understand how we're gonna fund things. In other words, my thinking is that if someone's got to pay for the maintenance, and it's either going to be the school district or it's going to be the user. And from my perspective, if it's the school district can budget for it, provide that service, provide the safety and security, provide the maintenance, but it has to be part of our budget. Okay? And if we do an MOU, then it's really, really easy for us to ballpark what that budget cost is going to be. And then it's also important that we be able to say at the budget hearings that, hey, the MOU with Jaffrey, the MOU with Ringe, all right, depends on this budget. And if the budget fails, then at least that part of it needs to be readdressed. Go ahead.
I do like the MOU or MOA type of approach. I also think that there are items. I like it because it gives us the opportunity to want to have some good conversations and back and forth and understand. I think we need to do a lot more of that proactively, but the other, just in general. But I think also it gives us an opportunity to address other things that we've been talking about, and the school district has certainly had to change in recent years at a rapid level, and it's our safety protocols and things of that nature. So making sure that we're having that conversation about vetting people, who's in the building, when they're in the building, all that kind of stuff on the fields, who's responsible for safety and security. There are a lot of conversations to be had in general, and so I think that it's a great idea.
Can I just ask, does that work for you guys?
The yearly meeting, you
Dan
mean?
and John?
Are you asking about the yearly meeting?
I ask about the idea of just having an annual memorandum of agreement or understanding it. It's fine.
Could I ask the board to talk a little about the waiver? What's your feeling on this?
Yeah, I'll say what my feeling is, just knowing that process, right? I just kind of projecting forward how this works, right? John would submit something for, again, that example, the basketball program for the year, which a lot of our district students use. After a period of time, that would come to us for approval. I don't know. I guess I don't know how that would go personally. I couldn't see myself, so voting against it. But I don't know. And so in the end, I don't know, what the benefit is. I think there's a great benefit to this policy when I see it, to the different tiers and having that detail in there. But in reality, are we really going to be collecting any fees? Are we going to be approving the waivers? I guess I don't see us I'd like to hear what other people have to say about that.
So from my perspective,
Yeah.
if you have an MOU, you don't need a waiver.
Yeah.
But you reach agreement on usage, who's gonna pay for what, if anything, and then That's in the MOU and it changes annually.
I think having a broad-based statement like that is much more effective than addressing it kind of on a program by program basis. It's just gonna, sounds like it's gonna bog Trey down, it's gonna bog him down, it's gonna bog down our school board meetings, so I think just having that agreement. Whatever the result is, if there's funds, if there's not funds, just working together on that is the way to go. Sounds like the process as we have it right now is still needs some fine tuning.
I think we bit off more than we could chew. But philosophically, it was the right thing to do. But when you get the devil's in the details, and there's a lot of details.
And it sounds like the added benefit here is maybe we'll be able to kind of get together and have some of those other conversations about security and. You know,
Yeah, I
things that we
mean,
need to
in this
address
case,
beyond
right.
maybe what's in here.
You know, in this case, for instance, I think, John and I, we have a MOU for crossing guards, that's a good document spelled out. This is when things will be paid and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice and clear. No guessing.
Is it a yearly thing that you guys meet and talk about?
We may do that every 1 or 2 years, but, and then we have one with the police for other reasons and so forth. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, again, just working together, having good conversation, talking about difficulties. Everything's changing for us constantly. I know, and I'm sure it is for the town in general, and then also the recreation department. So the more we can be collaborative and work together toward the common good of everyone who lives in this area, that would be, I think, a strong goal for this, for the community.
Can I ask a question of Heather? Heather, how often does, and this is separate, I understand, but when my daughter used to run track, frequently Franklin Pierce would be there running track. Is that something that they book? I'm just wondering, like, how often are our fields, you mentioned this today, how often are our fields used when we're not even aware that they're being used, or no one's scheduled, or
We're aware of Franklin Pierce using our track. That is, again, kind of an agreement, because we get so many hours and we get lots of them when it rains and pours, of use for the bubble, like what we just did with baseball and softball. So we're over there. We use their facility sometimes for basketball, indoor track, a lot of things. So we use the bubble almost year round a little bit, and they just use our track during the spring. Yep. So same kind of an agreement though. Go ahead.
do they schedule it to Master Library, or do they just show up?
I just know when they're not in Master Library. No.
I think Ruben has some info.
Well, just that I'm in contact on a weekly basis with various people over in FPU for the partnerships that we have developed this year. And they're going very well. And we had discussed getting together to formalize some more significant and clearer partnership for the athletics. Not just for usage, but also how their learners over there interact with our learners, and how we can have better relationships all the way around for the betterment of everyone's education. So it's that's at the end of June. That's being trying to put the, for a small group to start and then broaden it out.
Their athletes do all of their communities, a lot of their community service, what they have to do within our activities. So they're here, they did the morning JGS Be Active. They're there working with our elementary students. They'll come here, they'll be in the weight room, they'll work with club sports and those kind of things. So that is how their student athletes also get their service hours, is that they work with us. That is very funny because that is scheduled. It's called Helper, but they sign up for that. And so we have a program that we work with them with that. Myself and their communication or their community coordinator.
I only see good from that. Getting together and talking is, I think, one of the best things that with meeting with each towns. I think that's amazing. Everybody always has questions and it's easier to answer them then. Figuring things out. I think we have a lot to talk about on Thursday.
Thank you guys very, very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'll connect with Lisa. I'm not saying.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, I guess we are ready for the superintendent's report. Ruben, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, there's so much going on all the time. So I'm going to try to link some of our conversations that we already had into this. And that last week on Thursday, I was able to go to attend the State Board of Education Committee meeting. It was actually over at a school. It was not in Concord. It was in Alton at their new school that they have over there. I think it's relatively new. It's a nice location, beautiful space. And on the agenda was the Franklin Pierce University approval from the State Board of Education. So I went there to speak as the superintendents take turns to go around and speak at these events to talk about what's happening in the Southwest region of the state or the Southeast or whatever. So I represent the Southwest. And so I had the opportunity to give an update of our year to them with our partnership, our new partnerships with Franklin Pierce University. I was able to share some really fantastic information, numbers such like we have about 40 of our teachers chose to become mentors in one capacity or another, whether it be a student for a student teacher or whether it be for sophomore, junior level observatory, active observing opportunities. And so that's neat, since that all together across, in all of Franklin Pierce's mentors, they have about 80. So we have about half of the mentors that represent FPU. We have between 60 and 70% of the learners of their learners and education through our organizations already. Already they're starting to line up for student teaching next year. Had a lot of good conversations with our staff about the benefits to the schools, which has been exactly what we've wanted, which has been great. Nick, we have also in our MOU that we have with that MOA, that we have with them. We meet a couple times a year with a small group of individuals from there and from here, different grade levels, to look at how things are going, talk about things that have risen that we don't want to happen again or we want to improve upon. And so we've been able to do that as well. And we have some good plans for the fall to improve and actually for the spring of next year to improve communication, to improve our own programming, and to help them become better. If we help them become better, they help us become better. So it goes back and forth, which is really great. Other types of collaboration that we have been putting together is the Route 202 Steering Committee. That's going to meet for the first time this Thursday after policy. And so that's going to happen actually right here. And we have about 11 or 12 individuals who have indicated that they could come to that. Some people from both towns. There'll be a couple of people who can't make it on this Thursday, but want to be a part of it. So a couple of those individuals, some of those individuals who are non-board members. We have Amanda Dibble, who's a teacher here. We have Val Zanchuk, who owns Graphicast, or I believe is the owner of Graphicast here. Significant to him is that he also is going around to at least a few, but I think many of these events that the Department of Education is promoting on the minimum standards of education changes that they're talking about. So he was there at Keene on Thursday night at the middle school. I went over there to listen to a presentation, and then Val was there helping out with the presentation. So he's very much into competency education and proficiency education. And so he's an asset, and he's right here in our community. And so those are a couple of individuals, Jane Federowitz, Owen Houghton, Joanne Carr has indicated she's someone who's in charge of seeing vision and finances in this town. She can't make it Thursday. Gentleman from Ringe, Tom Horn. There is a relation, but a few steps away. And then we have some board members here, also former board member Jeff Clark Cavan. Jeff actually had a lot of interest and a lot of voice when he was on the board here around the Route 202, has an engineering background, understands that property probably better than anyone on this area right here. And we have some board members as well. Lisa Wiley, Heather is invited, Heather Lindstad, Chris Ratcliffe, and John McCarthy. There were some other board members interested. We had to cut it off at 3, but we'll have more after the steering committee. We'll go into broadening it out so that everyone is involved who wants to be involved within these communities. So that's neat. Along with the idea, I said that Val was someone in our community, manufacturing, really a supporter of education within the whole state of New Hampshire, but certainly around here. He is very much a proponent for competency-based and proficiency-based learning. David Dustin, though he's not working with us right now in person due to his time away, he will be back in a couple of weeks, which we're looking forward to that. But he was asked to be part of a panel for Otis in the concept of proficiency-based grading. He was able to do that last week. Had a group of about 1,000 individuals viewing that, and was able to speak about what we're doing here at the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District. One of the experts that they had for proficiency-based grading indicated that we were the gold from definition wise anyway, we're the gold standard of how to do proficiency-based grading. So that's good. Again, I will say that we're not completely there yet, but the concept of what we're doing and the way we have defined our proficiencies is where we would want to be. So that's good news as well. And then we had a job fair this past Saturday. I wouldn't say we had a large volume of individuals, but the individuals who did come, we had a lot of good conversation. People were applying, and they were, I would say, previously very difficult. We hadn't really had anyone applying for those roles, and so it was nice to see that happen. I've asked actually Nick, because I want to keep you up to date with how we're trying to change how we promote our district, and also get people to understand that we're here and have opportunities. So I asked Nick to put a couple things together, and after he's done, that's the last part of my report.
So I know that sometimes slideshows can be intimidating. This one's really quick. Just going over advertisement and whatnot for the job fair. The main way that we advertised in terms of putting money into things was through a Facebook advertisement. We spent $160 over the course of 10 days. And what Facebook does is they slowly funnel that money in throughout those 10 days to promote in different groups and areas. We were quoted by putting in that $160 and that we would reach approximately 11,000 people. Our reach is essentially just that somebody saw it in one way, shape, or form. We do have data that would suggest that I believe at least 80 to 90% of people caught it in some way on their mobile phone or mobile device. So overall, we ended up surpassing that 11,000 reach, and we got up to almost 19,000 people. So there were about 19,000 people that actually saw the ad on some device in some way, shape, or form. What we tried to do with this ad, because there are different directives that you can have, we said that we wanted link clicks, which would direct them to our website for more information about positions, benefits. We got 367 link clicks, and that's specifically them clicking on, there was a little banner on the bottom there could have been additional people that clicked on, there was a link in a text box in the actual advertisement. So we could have had more than 367. It's just through tracking. That's what we got. So that means we spent about 44 cents per click into the website. On this advertisement, we also got 6 post shares, meaning that somebody shared it, and then saves, meaning that they saved it so that they could look at it another time. We ended up through advertising, you can kind of choose demographically what you want to reach a little bit. When it comes to jobs, you obviously have to, you can't restrict by age, you can't restrict by demographics and all the things that you normally wouldn't do when trying to hire, but we could specify location. So because we were hiring teachers and because we're earlier in the year, instead of going super local, like we did last time when we were primarily looking for like custodians and instructional associates, we expanded out to all 6 New England states and also to New York to try to see if we could pull more regionally. We got a really big pull right off the bat in New York, and just to not distort and get too far out of the way, I ended up cutting that off from the advertisement about halfway through, because at that point we had already reached quite a few people. I'll show you later in the next slide or a slide down. So ended up getting a pull throughout New England. Here is one demographic bit of information that we received. This shows you the percent of men and women that looked at it. We had about 70% women. And then you can also see those respective curves for age demographics. So that's one bit of information just to show, you know, those bits. And then this is showing the states, as you can see, pulled really big in New York. About a third or so of people that saw it were in New York. So we pulled that off. And then Massachusetts and Connecticut really started to pull up. You know, the last 3 New England states, Maine and Vermont didn't do as well, but still 500 people in each state at least saw it. This is opposed to us potentially. Some school districts have put out newspaper ads taking out an eighth, a quarter of a page somewhere. That can get pretty pricey if you're having them design, or even if you're submitting something. If we're doing a small public notice, you know, about that big in the newspaper, that can be $100 to $200 depending on how many days we post it. So obviously it would be a lot more expensive if we were to do a full ad in the newspaper. So we've determined that because we can track data, we feel that we're getting more bang for your buck out of that cost because we're able to reach people, look at the demographic information, so on. Did try a couple other ways. Obviously our website, as soon as you logged in, you would see that there was a job fair. You wouldn't be able to go to any page on the website or any of the school websites without that popping up. So everybody who went to our visited our website saw that. We also did a social media post. It was pretty similar to the ad. Just wanted to also put it on our page so people would see it. Ran that for one less day, reached about 2,000 people, which is a slightly better than an average post for us. So we did get a lot of people, but we can't verify how much overlap it was. We did have 16 Facebook shares. Our Instagram network's a lot smaller, so we only reached about, 167 people there. The other thing that we did, we continued our use of signs because we were told specifically by people last year through feedback that those signs were helpful for local people in terms of being able to see and know. Because we already had the signs, instead of buying more signs, we just bought stickers that went over the date and time. It was $115 to do those stickers. We had 20 signs when we first did the job fair. We're down to 15. We lost 3 more signs this time, so we are down to 12 signs at this point. But those were placed in Jaffrey, Ringe, Peterborough, Keene, Swansea, Dublin, Troy. Tried to get a wide network locally. Tried to put them in high impact areas, in front of grocery stores, big intersections, areas like that. So we just wanted to share some of that information with the board to say that, for under $300, we had that kind of impact. As Ruben said, we were able to get a number of people. I think you anecdotally told me that it somehow reached somebody in Texas.
Yeah, we had an individual fly in for the job fair from Texas. Yeah, and an individual who probably got it from forwarded it to her from someone, whichever way, whether it be our post or whether it be the one we put out there through Facebook, then having them, choose their path. Someone who is moving this way in the fall, and so our needs matched that person's experience And so, yeah, we had a person fly out specifically for that.
There was one other thing that we tested out that was different about this job fair as compared to the last one. Last year, we got a lot of feedback specifically from like people applying for custodial and instructional associate positions. That School Spring as an application process was very cumbersome, hard to deal with. It felt like there were a lot of boxes to check and worry about that they didn't need to. When it comes to certifications and whatnot. So what we did this year is I worked with HR, we created a paper application for those folks. So that we wouldn't deter them and just have them leave because they got frustrated by the School Spring process. So we kind of piloted that program. We didn't get that, I heard we didn't get that many people in those demographics to apply this to go around, but it could be a resource that we now use in the future. It's been handed off to the Student Services Department, to the Facilities Department. And we can continue to retool that process, eventually put it in a FREPO form. So that we have an easy digital process for people, but that just helps to get rid of some of those teaching based questions and areas, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Good job, Nick.
Yeah.
I mean, the only last big real thing that I can think of, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but is that we did have the play Hello Dolly here over the weekend, and while I was busy doing a few other things, I was able to get there a couple of different times to hear pieces of it. And first of all, the singing was like phenomenal. So, I mean, it was really, what I saw was very impressive, and I heard very good things about the performances. So I don't know if anyone was able to go there and see the entire.
Yeah, I went on Saturday and good sized audience and they were phenomenal. That was so much fun to see a musical again. It was wonderful. Phenomenal job. Kudos to, I mean, Carrie Swift is just breathtaking what she can get accomplished. And Anne Marie, they're just breathtaking what they can do.
We had middle
Jen
schoolers and
Connery.
high schoolers in that.
Oh,
in that
yeah,
performance.
heavy middle school presence, heavy
Yep.
middle school.
There was even a grade schooler.
We did have some.
Oh,
younger-
numerous.
Yes, we did have some great schoolers, yeah.
I did not get there. I was just.
I know, I wanted to too. I heard good things.
It was so good.
Heard
It was
we've got some
literally
powerhouse
singing it
people.
all day.
Yeah.
too. So good.
All right, well, great. So. Thanks for all those updates. I guess we are ready for our consent agenda. Somebody would like to make a motion, we have an amended consent agenda and adding. Actually, guys, even the nomination.
I'd like to make motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you, Lucy. And we have a
I'll second that.
So thank you. If there is no discussion, then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries. If there. Great, and then, we've already done our discussion with KFR. So, we're on to a presentation on the Jackson Ridge Cooperative School District Athletic Facilities Committee.
All right, so one of the smaller committees that we have out there that we invite people to take part of, basically interest-based, something that matters to them. You know, we have these are short-term committees saying, can we do something to improve? That's really the summary of this. We have athletic facilities. We have athletics. We're trying to improve our extracurricular, co-curricular activities and the attendance and participation. In order to do that, you got to have safe, adequate, at least adequate spaces for doing business. And so we had several individuals take interest in this, and though not everyone could come every single time because people have lives, there was a good deal of synergy around this group. So if we go to the scope of work page, which is the next one. This was what was sent out in an email inviting, basically saying this is the JRCSD. Athletic Facilities Committee. And we're doing this to review the current state of our district's athletics, fitness spaces, fields, gyms, assess the district's current and future needs for these spaces, discuss possibilities for how to improve things, develop a plan for how to improve things, and then provide a report back to the board. And so here we are. So here are some of the committee members. There are others who have dropped in and or had mentioned that they were interested. And again, not everyone could come every single time. I'd like to, would you like to, I have a member of the committee right here. Would you like to introduce yourself to the board? So that they know.
Harvey from Jaffrey. And I'm the varsity head coach here for the boys soccer.
Yeah. So if you've been to the boys soccer games, you would have seen, you had a couple of really strong seasons. Tom's been doing a great job, very committed to the town of Jaffrey, broader from just our soccer program here. And so, which is what we were looking for, that type of participation to really bring community mindset into what we need because of our earlier conversation, right? We share a lot and we're doing this to benefit our children but I think also families. And so, Tom, at any point in time, if I say something or put something up on this slideshow that you want to speak to, I would like, at any point in time, just to interrupt or speak what you would like to say about what we talked about. So you have that. Just this does not mean by any means that you have to. So, but I would certainly want to give you the opportunity. You were the one who you came out tonight. Okay, so we can go to the next one. So athletic facility needs. We reviewed the facilities, the track, the field complex. We talked about lights. We talked about irrigation. We talked about the lower fields. We've talked about that a lot, certainly in our meetings throughout the course of the year, not only here, but in the facilities committee. Pratt Auditorium, RMS Gymnasium, what should it actually say? JGS Gymnasium, but that's okay. It should say JGS Gymnasium floor. And so those are some of the areas that we, had discussed. And so there were some recommended things to do. The committee was saying, hey, let's, first of all, is there anything we can do right now? We have needs right now. And if we just wait till another budget cycle, those needs are only going to get more significant. Because of our conversation tonight, we have a lot of wear and tear happening on every surface of our athletics and co-curriculars. So we looked at JGS, and the conversation was really one of the individuals indicated, yeah, I go into JGS. It really just doesn't feel like the safest floor. It's certainly an old floor. It's kind of worn. It doesn't look particularly elementary-ish, first of all. We like the wood. So the wood's not bad, but it just needs to be touched up and it needs to be improved upon. So recommendation was, let's make it better. Find out how much it costs. And if we can, sand, finish, paint the JGS gym floor, put that owl on there that they have and make it look really pretty, as well as be a safer gym for slippage and so forth. Making sure that there's no places for splinters and all of that. Similarly, sand, finish, and paint the Pratt floor. Pratt, we had a lot of we had several concerns, complaints about the slipperiness of that floor this year. Not only for volleyball, where it really is it's not set up with the bleachers and also the lines and so forth. It wasn't perfect. We had a great year with our first varsity year of volleyball. Basketball, we had to consistently work to get that floor washed and swept and keep up with it, because it's used so much within this facility during the day, and then just doesn't stop. There are no times where it gets not used. So during the winter time in particular. replacing those bleachers. The bleachers themselves, well, while you can sit on them, they are what they are. They do get pulled out manually right now, if people can pull them out. And there are some sharp edges, some difficult things having to do with the bleachers, but primarily we wanted to put some bleachers in there that were going to be less strenuous on the backs of the individuals who are taking those out. So something maybe with some electronic remote moving of the bleachers. Also, the placement of them needed to be considered because we did have some feedback from referees that we weren't really in compliance with what should be for some of our athletics. Both for where they can stand, but also for where we do our scoring and so forth. We had an issue last year on the soccer field before the soccer season. It was a tough year where something wasn't working well with the irrigation and we had quite the burnt field. And so not wanting that again, we want to make sure we're taking care of things. There was a solution to make the irrigation be more efficient, and so fix that. And then to look at everything else. So all the fields, Ringe Memorial School, where we know we have that nice space, but there are some oddities about it. And then of course the lower fields down here where there's a lot of runoff, there's a lot of the drainage is wrong. The spaces really aren't very usable for actual games. There's some practicing that goes on out there. But we're just not utilizing our space well. So to get some professional support with that. There was also quite a conversation about lights, saying, get some lights on the field and a track, that the place that really is our best spot, that really is kind of the shining athletic facility right now of the district. Let's have some lights. Let's be able to make it so that the community has something that they can look forward to and go to. But also, if we're looking for space, well, create more space, but there's also, can we create a longer time of usage of the space that we do have? So that was another way of, if we're going to have more players, which we want to keep on having that issue. So many schools are having the reverse situation, teams not having enough team. Heather tried to schedule meets with teams this year and was having a difficult time in some of the sports because a lot of these schools are either don't have JV teams or what have you, or they just don't have the sport at all anymore, because that seems to be a bit of a trend. We want to trend in the opposite direction. It's important for the health, well-being, and just I think even the academic improvement of our kids. And we certainly have data that shows, especially in the middle school, that the engagement of the learners has helped with behavioral situations. And then we talked about maybe develop a plan for a new athletic complex or wellness center down the road that would benefit the entire community and provide the school with more space and resources. And it was stated, preferably, this would not be on this campus. Meaning we couldn't imagine where something like this could be. Like, why would we want to continue to add on to an older building with another new area, if we even could, and where would that be? And it just, that was the conversation of the committee. I don't know, Tom, if you wanted to add anything, you don't have to, but I know that you had talked about this or any of those. It is on, you won't hear yourself, but they'll hear you in the audience. Yeah.
Again, Tom Harvey from Jaffrey, but the idea here is to not put this structure that we need so desperately here, because we're just putting it into an older building, an older facility, where we should maybe be looking at getting our foot in the door in a different location in the community. So that we can start that transition to where we eventually will have to go here. Into a new school or whatever down the road. Perhaps now is the time to sort of look into that steering committee that we're talking about. And getting motion in the direction of the other property that the school owns out on the highway. It was really a discussion that we had during these sessions, that it was really just not a good fit to put this here on this facility, in this location. If you talk about a STEM school or a STEM location, another resource for a gymnasium, all the different programs that we could get involved in this athletic complex wellness center. We talked about the number of kids that are actually in our community that go to different schools, that come to our schools and use our schools and their after school programs, and being able to create enough space for all of those in addition to our current situation with athletics and academics and you know, the after school clubs and things like that. So we are growing very quickly, as we all know in this room, and this would just be one way that this committee felt like we could help alleviate some of the pressure here and lead us as, you know, phase one, as getting us into the future where we're eventually going to have to go.
Great, thank you. Then the last slide. And so we've actually taken some action already on some of this. So they said, get the gym floor situated. So we have scheduled the JGS gym floor is scheduled to be completed before the end of the school year. And so it will be sanded, it will be painted, it will have the emblem on there, everything. It will just be a nice, it will be a rejuvenated surface, similar to what we did over at RMS a couple of years ago, which completely changed how that floor was. And then the Pratt floor, same thing, and bleachers. Now the bleachers, what I will say is my information up here is incorrect. The bleachers will be taken out by June 30th. The new bleachers will be put in at the start of school or by the start of school. So it could happen anytime during the summertime, but you know, lead times on these things is, and getting the work done is key. But the Pratt floor itself, and I believe we're trying to get the stage as well, but which is a smaller item, but the Pratt floor is going to be redone. And then that takes care of a lot of the safety and non-compliance matters there. And it provides our recreation departments and that utilize those spaces. Also, it provides them better facilities as well as our certainly the facilities for our kids that use it on a daily basis. Irrigation at the track complex is scheduled to be completed by June 30th as well. And then John had called around a variety of schools looking for who is recommended out there to look into athletic complexes, and that's what they do for their job. Who are people using out there for the planning process? And so Galen Associates was a group that came out. They walked for several hours with John around the areas, looked at all the fields, kind of talked about what I believe. Heather, were you with them as well?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, would you be willing to say a couple words if we could give you a microphone about what that conversation was? Because this is another part of the school board agenda.
I'd like to say that my head varsity coach held restraint when he was talking about lights, because when you see that, because one of our games got called and we lost last year, a big heartbreaker. But anyways, not let me go there. He did a great job. I walked with John and the engineer. We checked out again the same things, the track, talking about the field, about lights. We went to lower field, which was sopping wet, which was great at the time, so that she knew what we were getting into. Talked about the wetlands, all those things, looking at the possibilities of making that field back to where it was, that it was, you know, it used to be a baseball field. The backstop is still there, but how do we make it multifaceted so that we could still use it for sports in the fall, which would be the soccers, the field hockeys, those kind of things, but then also have another baseball field because we just don't have enough in just using Humiston. She looked at that. She looked at the size of Stonefield, how we can make that work. Again, because softball and baseball are big, and we just really don't have the space with the numbers that we are getting. So she took a look at all of that. We also took her over to RMS again for the same thing, to talk about what we can do over there for the fields. And it was nice to be over there at the time because it was recess. And those fields just aren't really nice. Like the kids aren't really just running around. It's, you know, they're unsafe really, if you really thought about playing soccer over at RMS and those kind of things. But we talked about that, the leach fields and all of that other space in the area. And again, the rec department has, with Monadnock, done some nice things to the baseball field, but making sure that that was part of it too. So kind of a combination. You can do both things, like lower field with the baseball field, and what they could do the same way with the soccer field at RMS and the baseball, so that seasonally those things are all being played. So that's what we looked at. We had the discussion too, a little bit about the Route 202, so that she was aware of those kind of things and the opportunities that we might have there.
Great. Thank you. And then the last thing was, as we were having this conversation, was saying we do have that property on 202. There was discussion early on about, well, you know, might someone in the community like to purchase that and maybe put a wellness center on there, because they think there was need for the community to have a community center. And there have been conversations about building community centers in this area for, my understanding is, decades. And that has not taken place. So then more conversation through our meetings, we had about 5 or 6 of them total, was that really there's I think the group at the last meeting that we had last Wednesday was felt that their communication to the school board here was that it is their opinion that doing away or selling that property, 100 acres in that area, would be a mistake. So the steering committee will have conversations about that, but that's certainly input from that group. And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. In this day and age, we're not even gonna find 100 acres within town for us to build in this for, have any sort of future facilities. Even if it's not a school, it's just fields or a wellness center and some fields, whatever it may be. You're not gonna find a piece of land here in town. And you could never replace the 100 acres for what you would get for it this day. You wouldn't be able to buy a 100-acre parcel for that. Whatever you think you might get today.
and that's the end of the presentation. Thank you for Heather and Tom for adding, I think, valuable insight into what I had put up on slides.
Are there any questions or comments for?
I think it's a great way to move forward, because from my experience, where I come from, it's a lot easier to build community support around athletics than it is academics. And so I think it's a great way to get community involved in community support.
I didn't see anything on action about lights. Where's that stand? To just like super expensive, like,
Like, what's the action on lights?
well, so I didn't see anything in there, so where is that on the list? Like what's?
Yeah, that's in the
what's-
Gale and Associates.
Gale and Associates.
Information, basically, what I mean, what I didn't put up there, to your point, is that right after the Pratt and right after the gymnasium at JGS, and the field, making sure that it is irrigated properly,
Mhm.
it was immediately, and if you could get the lights out there, don't wait.
Okay.
Now, the
Yeah.
other idea is that if you wanted to develop a longer term plan for everything else, whatever you do for those lower fields, at least make certain that you put the electricity and the conduit and everything that you need in order to eventually have lights in that area if you want not to do
Okay.
it right away. But basically set things up for the future was the idea.
Okay.
But people would, they would like lights tomorrow.
Yeah.
To answer that, Kim,
Yeah.
the committee was set on the lights because of how much more access we would have to our fields,
Yeah.
right? So
Oh,
that
yeah.
practices could continue.
Mm-hmm.
We don't mess up games because it gets dark.
Just bringing the community together
The
too.
reason, Kim, and on that too, and we had talked about it, but also the community is, you can speak about it, like what we have done with basketball and being able to have two varsities, have a girls' game and a boys' game back to back.
Yeah.
And they would like to do that, right? You could do that if you had lights and you could have two varsity games on a
Right.
weeknight and bring the community down
Yep.
for those kind of things. So
Yep.
Yeah,
That-
Friday nights could be really fun.
that, right.
That would
I mean,
be
we don't
it'd be
have
amazing.
football,
The
but we
kids
can-
talk
we
about
have
all the
soccer.
time. It's so important.
Right.
Yeah,
Apples, we did.
agreed. Weird.
But that was stressed with Gail, as Ruben just said, that they would be showing us where the lights and, because lights would have to eventually, or electricity and everything for scoreboards and those kind of things. If
Yeah.
you're gonna use it for baseball and softball and
Mhm.
that, the electricity, whatever, it have to be out there as well as the lights. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Thank you.
Lights
Okay,
have
great.
bug lights.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Be a fun sound. to Keep on hearing bugs sizzle. Yeah.
For the JGS floor, I don't know why I didn't think to ask this question in the facilities meeting, but the sanding and all of that, that's not gonna help the sound issue in the cafeteria, right?
It will not, no, that's something that would have to happen from the other side, from underneath.
And of course, I'm so appreciative of everyone who participated in this committee, the extra hours that people put into it, it's huge. I heard discussion about it when I was out and about going to various sporting events, so I think that these committees are very important in connecting and involving our community, so I very much appreciate your time and everyone's time. It gets us all on the same page, which is what's important.
Well, and quite honestly, I don't have the history. So, Tom, Nick, you all have the history of what's happened and what hasn't happened and the frustrations that have been had for quite some time.
Mhm.
People want good things for their community.
We want good things for our students.
Yep.
Okay, well, great.
Yep.
So, thank you very much for the discussion on that, and it sounds like it's part of a more global process of assessing our needs and planning for them. Great. All right, we have a couple of action items on our agenda. The first one being the sole source vendor approval for Gale and Associates for the athletic field master plan.
So this is just a continuation. This was the last thing that was on that other presentation, and that this document is basically what came out of the conversation and meeting that Heather alluded to when she and John walked around with them at these locations. This group, this is what they do. They've been recommended by a couple of schools in the area. This is the group that they utilize for their spaces and the work that they've had to do. Most recently, Keene was one of those places that gave a very positive recommendation for this, knowing that we want to do things right the first time. Not to say that they would be necessarily the cheapest group. So there could be other individuals out there. That's why we bring it here, because though while we don't know a lot of other groups that solely work on fields and athletic complexes like that, I'm sure that others exist. We could go, and we would need to, with the likely go out for bids down the road. Although the amount for this would just simply require 3 quotes. But I think what John was putting here was hoping that he really felt confident with this group, their information, the information that came to him from other schools and their dealings with this group, that he thinks it would be beneficial for the district to enter into an agreement for them to help with the planning. This is not a group that is going to actually do all of the engineering, design and so forth of all of the fields, but they would help make that happen. And they'd tell us what we would need. They'd give us, financial information, roughly what we would need to have. They'd help with communication with the communities and so forth. So this is what they do, as opposed to maybe another engineering architectural firm who would say, and we can do this.
So Ruben, can you tell us what the justifications are that we need to have for going with the sole source provider? In other words, what do we hang our hat on here in terms of, avoiding those other 2 quotes?
Well, the board can, the board can override the rules that it has, the policy that it has, right? So you've adopted a set of policies for the business office and how things roll. So at times you've said, let's not go out to bid, we'll do this, or because of a relationship, or because we know this is the best, that we already have a relationship with an organization and they already know the building and they've already done half of the work or whatever. Like, so sometimes we've done that. This would be, the idea would be like, yeah, we'd like the fact that this company has that we have been in contact with other schools who have really glowing reviews of them and that they're highly regarded, and we want to get this right. So let's move forward with this proposal and it will help us in our planning. It doesn't commit the district to building anything. It's really saying, all right, we have ideas. We want to do something with the lower fields, but we don't know all the options. We don't know, do we want turf? Do we want artificial turf? Do we want, what is the best for drainage purposes, and what's the best for the longevity of a space and the usage of the space. They're going to be able to give us all that information.
Can I ask, is this something, it's $50,000. Is this something that should have gone up for bid? I'm not sure of that process. We haven't done too many other things, but.
I believe, bid, well, we haven't spent any money so far, so this was just a consultation, but what they're proposing, this is what they're saying we would do for this amount of money. And so that's why we are bringing it here to consider whether or not we should say, this is nice, but you really need to go through and stay with the purchasing guidelines. 50,000, I believe we don't have to go to bid. I believe that's 75,000. But it would require 3 quotes. So 2 other organizations quoting us something similar that they would do.
Right, and so, you mean, the question is a good one,
Yeah.
because that's what we're
That's the
looking
issue.
at
That is
can
the
we-
issue.
Should we, given that they come in, done a walkthrough, made a presentation, do we have? Adequate funds to, award this as a sole source vendor without.
I mean, the board may say, we need to get 2 other quotes. Which it might be hard to get a 2 others to come on in and do the scope of work that they have, done and proposed. We could certainly say this is what we're looking for someone to do. And then you have to have if they say, yeah, I can do this for 10,000 less, or $30,000 less, or $20,000 less, and
Getting apples and apples.
are you getting apples and apples? It's a good way to say it.
What is the minimum amount that you need for the 3 quotes?
15,000.
Okay. Motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to award the sole source contract to Gale and Associates for the athletics field master plan in the amount of $149,195, and to authorize the superintendent to execute the contract.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Not 100.
Yeah, where's that money, Charlie?
Oh, excuse me, 49. Excuse me. Can't read my own writing.
Yeah.
The amount of $49,195.
Thank you for that. Direct motion. All right. Do we have a second?
I was gonna take it all back.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion or questions?
Yes, where does this 50,000 come from?
We're gonna have to bring that information back to the board. As to where it would come from and when it would come from. It would likely come out of next year's budget, so we would have to look into where that savings, maybe through the hiring process or whatever, has, so I can tell you this is where it's coming from. Because Carrie had that same question.
I guess. personally, I'd
It's a
like
great
to-
question.
To wait to answer this one when we know
Mhm.
where that's a substantial amount of money. So I guess.
So I would ask that you consider changing your motion to say after providing the board with the location where the money would come from.
The source of the money.
Yep, source of the funds.
Well, is
I'm
that-
fine with that.
So amended.
Okay, good. And Nick, is that good enough for you? Okay,
I just feel that there's. Okay. It'll end up being a line item transfer anyway that we have to approve.
It would be a.
Just like any other approval.
right. Right,
But I think to your point, Lisa, what I can hear from you is that, okay, it's nice to take it from that, but how do you know, like, that it's actually there? So you're not transferring back into that space
Yeah.
for something else, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I get it. And is it taking away from something that maybe we had indicated that we need? Right, so I think.
Yeah.
Being so early in this, in the whole scheme of things, it's an important
Thank you.
transparency item.
okay. So if there are no more questions or comments, then I would ask for the yeas and the nays, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, so that passes 6-0. Thank you. And what about our next action item is supplemental pay rates.
We do this every year. And so this is just to show you what we believe we want to change. There have been some changes within the instructional associates contract. And so making some adjustments in that long-term area we had wanted to do. Now that also takes into consideration that we have that same amount for permanent substitutes. So that is where that $19 came from. make sure that we're treating people similarly. Different position perhaps, but still similar. And then I think, let me see, description, teachers, specialists, and instructional associates. I think that actually has already been approved. And it just wasn't changed because we had changed the nurses one and approved that. So it's just basically saying these are the rates that we believe are good for the next couple of years for substitute pay rates. I think there's another, is there another part of this, Nick? There's got to be another. Like summer, there's no, there we go, okay. So. No, none of them are changed?
As I recall, we did approve the increase in the rates for substitute teachers.
Long-term substitute teachers, we did, yes. And so,
No, I'm talking regular short-term, regular substitute teachers.
and we did that as well, yes.
Yeah, from 16 to 1750.
Yeah. So I guess those are the only two changes for the upcoming year.
Are we already paying that? We approved the.
Yeah, I
increase.
think the increase for the, yeah, but it's this is just updating it. Because we had approved, yeah, you're right, it should have been changed before. Yeah, but the 19, so really the only change is the $19 one. For the instructional associates for long-term. Any long-term substitutes we have for those roles.
Make a motion to accept the amended document to reflect the increase for long-term instructional associates.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second?
Second.
Steve, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? And seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes 6-0. All right, very good. Moving on to board committee updates.
Education Committee quickly didn't meet in May. There wasn't anything really on the agenda to talk about, so we switched it to June 1st because we would normally meet June 2nd, but there's a conflict with graduation, so we'll be doing it on the 1st. So nothing really to update there, except for the change of meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And policy committee, we've heard.
Policy will be meeting 4:30 on the 18th. And I can say goals committee will be meeting on the 25th, also at 4:30.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Finance committees are meeting Thursday at 3:30.
And the wellness committee met.
Wellness Committee is hosting their spring walk to school on Wednesday at all of the schools location. The Wellness Committee is very happy with food service programming. Gardening we're working on gardening with a plant gardening group and planting over PBS. Other than that, I think the Wellness Committee hasn't made another meeting, but we just have.
Well, thank you for that. Okay, and notice committee met today. We had very active meeting, a lot on the agenda. We had an update from Steve Hort, who's our clerk of the work on HVAC project, which is, also a very big project for us. It's affecting all 4 of our schools, upgrading our electrical systems, our heating and humidification progress. It's been pretty good. We were told that all the physical work will be completed by late August. Quite a bit's been done already. In the summer, once school ends, this building in particular is going to be very active. It's going to be duct work going in. It's going to be workmen all over the place. It's going to be hard to use this building this summer. The other 3 buildings, including the middle schools, they're in pretty good shape. 2 grade schools are largely completed. And all of the unit ventilators will be coming out of the wall, so there'll be holes in the wall all over the building. Briefly, they'll take out the unit ventilators and block in the openings. And then we have a process over the next year or 2 of, especially the next year, making sure that the systems are working to design. And so we'll be asking people to pay attention to the temperature in their rooms, make sure that they're getting the kind of airflow that they need to maintain a comfortable environment, because that's how this was designed. The process is a process of balancing, which means that they need to make adjustments to the airflows, including both the software adjustments, but also some physical adjustments. Try and make sure that every part of the buildings get the kind of temperature and ventilation that they require. But we seem to be in pretty good shape, and our book of work is confident that the job has been done well. There is still more to pay attention to, and we have Sandra here with us tonight. Thank you, Sandra, for being here. John's in place. And she'll be working with John over the next 6 weeks to make sure she's up to date on what's involved in finishing up not only that project, but a whole raft of other projects. I just pulled up the agenda from the facilities committee. There's 35 items on here. And about 25 of those are items that are planned to be completed by June 30. And they include things like improvements to the daycare center, the new daycare center that's in the planning and implementation stage, security upgrades to doors, and in all of the schools. And I won't bore you with the details, but if anyone wants to look or has a desire for more information, we'll be glad to send you the agenda. There's a lot of live links, so you can get information from the agenda about the projects.
I'd love to see that.
Okay. Let's send it right over.
Just a comment, I had missed a couple of facilities meetings. And the agenda used to be 3/4 of a page, and now it's a page and a half of projects. So I don't know how we're gonna get them all done, let alone manage them.
There's so much work being done at JGF by the end of June. It's extremely impressive. It's gonna be safer. There's gonna be new flooring in the hallways that's more environmentally sound, easier to clean. With our logo at various points. New containment doors at all the schools through the SAFE grant. There's so much happening. It's all good stuff. And you can already see some of it just by going to JGS and RMS and looking at the vestibule doors have been replaced. It's good. We're making our buildings safer, making our learners safer, and brightening their spaces where they're learning, which is important.
And our doors are ADA compliant.
Yep, doors are ADA compliant. The bleachers will be ADA compliant. We didn't mention that. That's important.
Right.
My favorite, the JGS bathroom partitions. We're gonna get some new ones. That's exciting. small issues, just, aesthetics are nice.
Right. Small but
And
important.
well, and for branding purposes, RMS is getting its first sign out there.
yeah.
And it's a nice,
That's gonna be great.
really tasteful sign. It's not as it's not gonna be lit up like this one is. It's not gonna serve that purpose, but they're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, well, who left out communication?
Yeah, I can give an update.
Do you want to give it?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. There, Nick, feel free to jump in, but Communications Committee met on May 8th. We started off just kind of by going over the various kind of means of communication. And as far as the quarterly school district newsletter, social media, the newsletters from each individual school, and the various ways that we have to reach parents. And I think the conclusion of the committee is that, the infrastructure there and the process is really good. I think that, that we have ways to reach parents and learners and, numerous different ways. In going over that, one thing that was brought up was maybe an area for opportunity was more kind of face-to-face communication. For example, things, opportunities at school events in order to get certain messages out, because we may not be reaching. Certainly electronically, I think we have a lot of ways and we're effectively reaching people, but there's some people that are maybe not as reachable electronically. So those face-to-face communications, although you may be, interacting with less people, they may be more effective. So one of the ideas would be to get a strategy around that. So, we'll continue to discuss that. And really that's where kind of the remainder of our discussion focused on, given the fact that we think the infrastructure is there, how do we improve upon that and be more strategic about our communication versus, just informational. I don't think it's just informational, but I think we do a really good job of kind of covering our bases. So now we can, maybe take it to another level and start to tell kind of a little bit more detail about what's going on in our schools and get that word out there as we're trying to build community, right? I think it's important that we strategically communicate with our community about, what's going on, some of the positive things that were mentioned about what's going on at JGS, right? Those are when we talked about the amphitheater and that new flooring. It's really, really positive stories there. And also addressing, I think, head on the concerns that the community has about the school. I think there's a lot of great things going on here. We all hear concerns about maybe some things that are happening. I think we should use, whatever vehicles we have, to communicate about those concerns and show everybody again what we're doing here in the schools. So we're going to meet again in a couple of weeks, a week from tonight, I think.
Yeah, so I've officially confirmed that we have a quorum of people for next Monday. The reason why we're meeting so close is we decided as a committee that we were going to meet quarterly during the school year. Just due to some of my personal things, I had to delay getting this third meeting together. We want to meet a little closer so that we're not like smack dab in the middle of all the graduation events and things like that. So we will be meeting next Monday. The goal behind that meeting will be kind of twofold. One being looking at the communication plan. We started in 2019, we updated in 2021. It's now 2 years later again. Looking at how things are progressing, what needs to be done, so on. And then also just next steps in talking about some of these in-person things that need to be done. Building an infrastructure through the committee in which the committee can be a more active piece of that. Since I've come aboard, the committee has largely functioned as me just kind of communicating information to people in a room. And that's kind of the function of it. So we're trying to see how can we leverage that committee so that people can do more work, maybe show up at certain events and like try to either get information or communicate information. Two other things that we talked about is in terms of having that face-to-face component, looking at the volunteer process. and how we can try to engage more people just to volunteer in general. How can we make that process more accessible? How can we come up with an internal system so that we have a better knowledge of maybe who wants to volunteer, who has volunteered, what people have an interest in doing. You know, like I know Heather's always looking for advisors for clubs at various level. I know we've, you know, worked with a lot of FPU people, but are there community members that could come in and perhaps lead a club? We also talked about better ways to communicate like big ticket items that are harder to illustrate. You know, it's very easy to take a picture of a club or an activity and say, oh, hey, we're doing this activity. This is really fun. It's a lot harder to properly and concisely convey the impact of the 1 through 4 grading system and how that impacts students, community, et cetera. And we've had a number of meetings and things to talk about that, but how do we really communicate effectively so that that's very easily understood? So those are the kind of main things that we discussed and the steps forward. There was potential for talking about having some meetings over the summer, maybe with smaller groups, not the full committee, because some people said summer commitments might be a little more difficult, but maybe we can pull in different people for different projects. We'd also just talked about potentially meeting with administrators and having more of kind of a full district conversation about making sure that every school is kind of offering a similar level of communication so that nobody feels like they're being kind of left out, or, oh, hey, this communication is happening really frequently over here. It's not happening in this pocket. So kind of trying to bring up the level of everything now that we have that infrastructure.
Yeah, and this is, you know, no offense to Nick, but I think a lot of it's on him, and in order to take it to that next level, you know, and also be more effective, because I think it's, you know, different voices are important in how we communicate. So I think that'll be something we talk about, is how to effectively do that. How do we get the, you know, the voices of more teachers, or, you know, even students out in the community to talk about the things we're doing here. And I think we have a good, like I said, a good base in place to do that. So excited to talk about those next steps. Yeah.
One of the things that that Nick proposed last year was that obviously he wants to stay heavily involved, but that there should be a new chair. And is Daisy chairing that now, the communications committee, or who is?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, Daisy is the chair, but just by the way and function of how the committee is still working, even in this new committee, every meeting has been focused around me creating a presentation to talk about whatever, which I understand in certain cases have to happen. You know, Daisy's not gonna be able to talk about like what's working with the website and things like that, but a lot of it is me bringing ideas to the table, me presenting information, me leading discussion. Me, again, as Chris said, items being said, oh, well, Nick can work on that, Nick can do that. And then, you know, the laundry list gets longer and longer, and then I run out of time to do the 75 million projects.
That's why we're going to talk about the committee and exploring ways for other people to take a more active role, you know, in the actual communication, because I think it's
good.
Yeah, vital to, like I said, I keep repeating myself, it's getting kind of late. But to take it to that next level, right? Those different voices, how to like build upon what we have in place.
One of the things that we noticed with John LeClaire, who's, I think this is 3 years he's completed with us, is that right?
Yeah, it was the beginning of the 2020-21. So 2020-21, 21-22, it's 22-23.
Okay.
So it was through a very fun COVID experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Right, we were very fortunate to have him then. But one of the things we noticed with John, and probably his many years of experience, is he let us know early on that he could do a lot more, but he needed the support. He couldn't do it all himself. And so we got him a little bit of part-time help with Trey, and he got a lot more done. And pretty soon, Trey was full-time help. And so, I think the same thing can happen with communication or other. Yeah,
I think we're thinking the same way. In order to do that, we're seeing that, you know, there may be some bottlenecks. So let's come up with some ideas of what we want to do, and then see how much work that would take. And we can be a little bit more kind of we can have a plan, but then also have maybe some wiggle room to be a little bit more kind of reactive to things that are going on, right? It just doesn't need to be like, oh, here's what we do every year. It can be like, hey, you know, between us, maybe there's an opportunity to highlight like some things that are going on at the middle school, right? This is something that we talked about is that, you know, right now, the elementary school students are, you know, getting ready to come up to the middle school, which is a time of angst, you know, for a lot of reasons. It's a big time of change. You know, maybe we can, you know, increase the communication in that area and have a team that's a little bit more nimble, that's able to operate within the system. And communicate these things that aren't, you know, maybe even aren't just part of the regular, like, this is what we do in Q1, this is what we do in Q2. It's something that, you know, I certainly see a need for, and I think we can make happen once certainly we figure out what the right mechanism is.
Well, you know, it's really exciting to be working with a group like Gale. You know, to do facilities assessments and to have the athletics committee working and coming up with a vision for that important part of our school. And then now this other steering committee that's getting started. But a big piece of that is going to be, how do we communicate what's going on in the community?
Yeah,
That's the process.
There's, like I said, there's a lot of good things going on. I've heard, you know, excellent feedback about these things we've been talking about, the school board meetings, like the, you know, the new food service vendor. These are things people get excited about. Route 202, people would be excited about. I guarantee you that if, you know, once we get the word out about the amphitheater, right? It's going into JGS. That's something that, you know, is both going to affect the learners, you know, the teachers, and possibly be another venue for the community. So there's, and again, seeing that partnership there, working with, you know, the different people throughout the school district to make that happen. It's just a great story. And there's a lot of good stories out there. And
Right, celebrating a life achievement, basically, of a person so dedicated to the community and continues to be dedicated to the community.
Yeah, two quick points. One that I found really interesting, I was talking to Ruben recently and we were talking about communication, but then we fell into this conversation about the multi-year plan and how a lot of that functionality is all these different kind of illustrations throughout the plan. You know, we have one where we talk about the old way of doing stuff where it's very hierarchical and you kind of go down. And then you have the newer plan where it's kind of, you have all these different branching out areas that help to do things in different pockets. You have the Venn diagram of the 3 C's being communication, community, and collaboration. And then also you have that point where it's the arrow where things are all pointing in different directions. And then we're trying to get everything going in the same direction. And we had talked about how through communication, we were kind of already taking those steps to do a lot of those things. Because communication really kind of fails when it all relies on one person or a few people. You need that community, you need that collaboration. They're all vital pieces of that work. And then just the other thing that was brought up, and this is more personal than anything, but that idea of you know, speaking to trying to find more people that can help and assist and do some of these things, and having facilities kind of grow and expand and having those additional pieces. Technically, communication coordinator as a position is only a half-time position. So even with what I'm doing right now, that's only me spending about half of my time on that, and then the other half on school board stuff. So I definitely think there's room and ways that we can grow, improve, get people to help out, expand, get more work in communication and board matters and things like that. So.
Yeah, good point, important point. Okay, Christine.
Does FPU have a communication degree?
They do. I don't know if it's at the grad level or if it's at the undergrad level.
Yeah, I don't
Are you
remember.
aware?
I know that they have a program. I know they're pretty heavily involved in like political reporting when that season comes around. I know that they do have some sort of broadcast program or department. There's definitely opportunities where we could try to work with those folks. We could work with students, you know. It would really be great if I could have a couple more people, whether it be FPU students or high school, middle school kids working on different camera things. There's ways that I can expand our broadcast from a school board perspective. Or if I wasn't focused on running the meeting, making sure the audio is working, making sure the cameras are working, making sure the projector is running properly, taking a basic level of notes just in the event that the video crashes and doesn't work out. So having those extra people to kind of fill in and help out and expand, we could greatly kind of improve what we're doing. There's certain functionalities that I've wanted to mess around with, even from a school board broadcast perspective, that could improve that live stream and video quality. A lot of the times people complain about this idea of, I'm switching cameras around as much as I can, but still with the standard Zoom broadcast on a screen this big, everybody's still only this big in the corner. So even if I have the camera focused on one person, you're still this big. So if somebody's looking at that, they might not know who the board member is that's speaking unless they know them by voice, or they're able to kind of pick that out. There are certain programs that I can run in addition to Zoom that I could actually mess around with the sizing of that. To make it a little bit more interactive, easy to see. It's all just time and needing help here and there.
Okay. Very good. So, I think that takes care of our public, our board committee updates. What about, public comments number 2? Why don't we, do that?
All right, so it's gonna be the same rules as last time. If you're in person, raise your hand. I can acknowledge you that way. If you are remote, feel free to raise your hand remotely by using the hand raise feature at the bottom of whatever screen you're using. Can address you that way. Make sure you adhere to the policy, first name, last name, and town of residence before you speak.
Okay.
All right, I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay. Very good. What about board matters? Does anybody have a board matter they would like to bring forward? Lisa?
I asked Nick, I don't know if you saw the email, Nick. You did see the email. It's that time of year again to start looking at our schedules for the year-end events that the school board should attend. So I just asked Nick to put up what he's got so far.
Good idea.
And it should be noted, a big change this year. If you look at JGS and RMS, they are on different days. They're not the same day any longer. So we have 3 days in a row on that week, the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th of graduating related events. We go JGS, RMS, and then our 8th grade step up. The Friday before is the high school graduation. Obviously, people will get more information as pertains to them, and we'll probably promote more as we get closer in terms of event, locations and things like that. We also have the last day of school and last day of pre-K and kindergarten being Tuesday and Thursday, half day as approved by the school board for that last day of school for most people on Thursday the 15th. And this has been shared out by Ruben to the community. It's out on social media in this format. I'll double check to make sure that the calendars for each school have been updated individually to reflect on the district calendar.
Do we still have like baccalaureates, award nights, things like that?
There is a baccalaureate. The award, I think there is an awards night too. They don't do it simultaneous. Yeah, this is separate, correct?
Baccalaureate and, yes, they're separate. Baccalaureate Tuesday.
Yeah. Tuesday and Wednesday.
Difficult week, that's why I turned on. Yes.
So just confirm, you said Tuesday was the baccalaureate?
Is that the 6th though?
No, those tentative dates were under the impression that the last day of school was on June 9th. It's been moved down a week. So while we retain graduation on the 9th, all the other graduations moved to the following week. I did look at the calendar today for the middle high school, and I saw that there was still that proposed date that you were referring to for the baccalaureate. So I don't know if we finalized that date or not, but I'll check in with the middle high school to see.
That would be 5 years.
And the awards night would be
Yeah, I mean, because the baccalaureate and those events would still be relevant to that week because high school graduation. So I think it's just making sure that they're finalized and promoted on the calendars.
And there's a senior breakfast, yeah, so senior week, right? So there's senior breakfast and things of that.
And who are our graduation coordinators for the high school?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Senior class advisors. I'm talking senior class advisors.
I don't know. Typically, there's been a group of several people who coordinate that, not necessarily the advisors, but maybe it is the advisors. John Duggan and,
Senior class.
okay. Very good. I know it's a big production, graduation. It's, you know, loves organizing, but which Nick does quite a bit of it, but also a lot of other coordination in terms of the music and the ceremony itself. Tomorrow is the New Hampshire Environment competition up in Concord. I know about that because I'm getting picked up at 6:40 in the morning to head up to Concord.
We will have that club again this year.
You'll have that club here next year, is that what you said? Good. All right.
And so.
Great, yeah.
Looks like a baccalaureate is proposed on the 7th, and then the awards night is on the 8th, the day before graduation.
I think just RMS and JGS haven't updated the calendar because it's the only thing not on there.
Yeah, again, I'll make sure that those are done as soon as possible.
Those are the only two that aren't on there.
just putting it out there. We don't necessarily anything at all, but we do have an option. We could, if people are feeling that first June school board meeting might be a lot of meetings and a lot of events happening, we could move it to the 29th of May, Memorial Day. If people feel like, I don't know, those 2 weeks are pretty busy. That's because we have
29th of May is Memorial Day, though.
right.
I won't be here.
Yeah, I won't be available. I have a big event on the 30th. I think we need another motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
That was a motion. Okay, thank you. And with a second to that motion.
He already did.
Already did. Oh, sorry. Okay, good. Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.